She is legendary, immortalized as the seductive queen who captivated Rome's most powerful men. Cleopatra, the epitome of beauty and allure. But what if her true power wasn't her looks, but her unparalleled intellect, her mastery of a dozen languages, and her brilliant understanding of human psychology? What if her ability to charm emperors stemmed not from physical enchantment, but from her razor-sharp mind, her diplomatic genius, and her strategic use of every word she uttered? This is the untold story of Cleopatra's profound intelligence, her strategic brilliance, and how brains truly conquered empires, far beyond the whispers of mere beauty. Welcome to Behind the Legend, where we uncover the untold stories of history's most iconic figures, revealing the forces that shaped their extraordinary lives. In today's exploration, we're diving into the captivating life of Cleopatra VII, the last queen of Egypt. For centuries, Cleopatra has been portrayed primarily as the seductress who lured the mighty Julius Caesar and Mark Antony into her orbit. Her beauty has been immortalized, but what if the true power of Cleopatra was never in her looks? In this video, we're taking a deep psychological journey into Cleopatra's life, her upbringing, and most importantly, her intellectual and diplomatic genius. We'll explore how she was not just a queen of beauty but a master strategist, a polymath who spoke multiple languages, and a leader whose understanding of human nature and power dynamics shaped the course of history. Let's challenge the popular myth of Cleopatra's power and reveal the strategic brilliance that made her a legendary ruler and diplomat. Cleopatra's story begins long before she became the infamous Queen of Egypt. She was born in 69 BC into the Ptolemaic dynasty, a family line that had ruled Egypt for centuries but was rife with political intrigue, familial betrayal, and violent power struggles. Her early life was anything but easy. Growing up in the royal court of Alexandria, the intellectual heart of the Mediterranean world, Cleopatra was surrounded by a wealth of knowledge. But the palace also thrived in chaos. The Ptolemies, Greek rulers in Egypt since Alexander the Great's empire split, were notorious for their cutthroat politics. Her father, Ptolemy XII, was a weak ruler who had been forced into exile, only to return with the help of Roman influence. Cleopatra's own ascension to the throne was marked by turbulence, with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, becoming a puppet ruler controlled by palace factions. When her father died, Cleopatra was just 18 years old, thrust into power alongside her brother, with whom she shared the throne. From a psychological perspective, Cleopatra's childhood and early adulthood were shaped by a dynamic environment of instability and constant power struggles. This world of intrigue, betrayal, and survival likely ignited her drive for self-preservation and intellectual development. She was acutely aware that to survive and thrive in such an environment, she had to develop more than just a regal appearance. She needed sharp instincts, a keen understanding of human nature, and the intelligence to outmaneuver potential threats. Alexandria, in particular, provided her with the resources and intellectual environment she needed. The city boasted the famous Library of Alexandria, a center of knowledge where scholars from around the world gathered to exchange ideas. Cleopatra, from an early age, immersed herself in learning, not just in politics but in sciences, philosophy, and languages. Her education was designed to prepare her for rule, but it also shaped her into a woman with a sharp mind, capable of seeing beyond the immediate dangers of court politics. By the time she ascended to power, Cleopatra had already proved herself to be far more than just another royal figurehead. She had a rare combination of intellect, political savvy, and emotional intelligence, qualities that would become crucial in her survival. In an environment where assassination was often the answer to a political dispute, Cleopatra's ability to navigate these treacherous waters showed early signs of her strategic genius. But it was not only survival instincts that guided her, it was the deep belief that knowledge and communication were the tools that could secure both her throne and her nation's future. As the intellectual heart of Egypt, Alexandria imbued her with a lasting appreciation for the value of language and persuasion, tools she would wield with unparalleled mastery throughout her reign. Cleopatra's education gave her the foundation she needed to play the long game in the world of politics. Her growing understanding of Egypt's position in the broader Mediterranean world led her to make calculated decisions, including her eventual engagement with the Roman Empire. The tension of being surrounded by constant threats from her own court, as well as from external forces, set the stage for her extraordinary political strategies. One of Cleopatra's most remarkable traits was her exceptional command of language. While much of her contemporaries were content with using Greek, Cleopatra, born to a family that ruled Egypt, made a point of learning the Egyptian language. This was a profound decision, one that would distinguish her from her Ptolemaic ancestors, who had never spoken the language of their subjects. This act was symbolic. It wasn't just a political gesture, it was a psychological one. Cleopatra understood that language wasn't merely a tool for communication, it was a symbol of respect, a bridge between her and her people, and a powerful instrument of influence. Cleopatra's linguistic ability didn't stop at Egyptian. She was reputed to speak as many as 12 languages, including Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Latin. This linguistic talent was not just for show, it was a weapon in her political arsenal. Speaking directly to foreign diplomats and even rival rulers in their native tongues gave her an immediate edge. She could bypass interpreters, creating an intimate atmosphere of direct connection and trust. Imagine the psychological impact of that. When you speak directly to someone, without a third party filtering your words, it creates a sense of sincerity, authenticity, and power. This ability to speak multiple languages would have been a strategic advantage for Cleopatra, especially when navigating the complex political landscape of the Mediterranean world. The Roman Empire, with its own internal power struggles and constant shift of allegiances, would have been an especially daunting environment for any ruler, let alone a queen of a kingdom that was trying to maintain its independence. But Cleopatra, ever the strategic thinker, knew that communication was key. She wasn't merely charming these men with her beauty, she was impressing them with her intellect, her fluency, and her ability to understand their needs and motivations. Let's take her famous encounter with Julius Caesar as an example. When Cleopatra met Caesar in 48 BC, she was not just a young queen eager to win his favor. She was a calculated ruler who understood the political ramifications of aligning herself with the Roman general. But instead of relying on her physical appearance alone, she chose a different path, one of intellectual engagement. She met Caesar in person, spoke directly with him, and demonstrated her mastery of languages. By speaking to him in Latin, Caesar would have been impressed not only by her beauty but by her intellect and the depth of her education. In doing so, Cleopatra presented herself not just as a queen but as an equal, someone who could engage on the same level as the most powerful Roman leaders. Furthermore, her ability to speak Latin and Greek gave her the opportunity to directly influence Roman politics and the broader Mediterranean power structure. When she needed to persuade men like Caesar and later Mark Antony, her fluency in their languages allowed her to craft persuasive arguments that appealed to their specific interests and ambitions. Language, after all, is not just about words, it's about understanding the nuances of culture, emotion, and the psychological triggers that drive decision-making. Cleopatra's linguistic prowess also gave her an understanding of her audience's psychology. She wasn't simply speaking to assert her authority, she was using language to create rapport, to build alliances, and to manipulate situations to her advantage. In many ways, Cleopatra was a master of linguistic psychology, understanding how words could influence behavior, shape perceptions, and create lasting bonds between herself and the most powerful men of her time. By speaking directly to leaders like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, Cleopatra was able to bypass the usual barriers that often existed between rulers and foreign dignitaries. She presented herself not as a mere queen seeking favor but as a powerful figure who understood their language, both literally and figuratively. In doing so, she elevated her stature in their eyes, transforming the typical diplomatic encounter into an intimate exchange of ideas, mutual respect, and shared power. We've all heard the stories. Cleopatra's beauty captivated Julius Caesar, and later, Mark Antony. She is often depicted as a stunning woman who seduced the most powerful men of Rome, weaving her charm and allure into the fabric of her empire. However, to reduce Cleopatra's influence to mere physical beauty would be a gross misjudgment. The truth is that Cleopatra's true power lay not in her appearance, but in her charisma, her intellectual magnetism, and her ability to make others feel seen, heard, and understood. Charisma, often described as a magnetic charm or personal influence, is a potent psychological force. It's not about looking a certain way, it's about how you make others feel. Cleopatra's charis, as the ancient Greeks called it, was her ability to engage with others on a profound level, through intellect, wit, and a deep understanding of human nature. She wasn't just a queen in appearance, she was a captivating force who had the rare ability to hold the attention and loyalty of some of the most powerful men in the ancient world. Her ability to hold a conversation was legendary. Cleopatra was known for being highly intelligent, well-read, and astute in discussions of politics, science, and philosophy. When she spoke, it wasn't just her words that drew people in, it was the force behind them. She communicated with such clarity and conviction that she could persuade, charm, and inspire anyone in her presence. Imagine this. You are in a room with Cleopatra, and she speaks to you about the complexities of Egypt's political situation or the inner workings of the Roman Empire. She would engage you not just on a surface level but delve into the depths of your concerns and ambitions. She would not only listen to what you said but show an understanding of your true desires, your psychological triggers, and what would move you. That's the essence of charisma, the ability to draw others into your world, to make them feel both heard and inspired. Now, consider the context in which this charisma was wielded. Cleopatra's relationship with Julius Caesar provides a perfect example. When Cleopatra first met Caesar, Egypt was in turmoil. Her brother, Ptolemy XIII, had declared war on her, and the country was on the brink of chaos. Yet, in the midst of all this, Cleopatra engaged Caesar with such tact, wisdom, and insight that she was able to forge an alliance that would secure her throne and, by extension, the future of Egypt. But it wasn't just her diplomatic acumen that won him over, it was the intellectual bond they shared. Caesar, a man of great intellect himself, would have been drawn to Cleopatra's sharp mind and their ability to converse on equal terms. Their relationship was not a mere political alliance but one founded on mutual respect and admiration for each other's intellect. She did not rely solely on her beauty or her role as a queen, instead, she played to her intellectual strengths, establishing a connection that went beyond the superficial. The same was true of her relationship with Mark Antony. When Cleopatra met Antony, she understood that she wasn't just dealing with a Roman general, she was engaging with a man who had his own ambitions, insecurities, and desires. Cleopatra knew that to form an alliance with him, she would need to appeal to his sense of power and destiny. In their encounters, Cleopatra displayed a combination of wit, intellect, and charm that allowed her to draw Antony into her sphere. She wasn't simply relying on her physical allure, she was engaging him intellectually, emotionally, and psychologically, presenting herself as a worthy partner in both power and influence. Psychologically speaking, this ability to connect deeply with others is what makes someone truly magnetic. It's not the superficial traits that create lasting influence, it's the genuine, intellectual engagement with others that builds trust, admiration, and loyalty. Cleopatra's intellectual allure transcended her physical appearance, making her a woman of substance and authority in the eyes of those around her. Her charm was the kind that made people feel important. In the courts of both Rome and Egypt, Cleopatra knew how to make others feel as though they were the center of attention, as though their ideas mattered, and their ambitions were worth pursuing. This psychological dynamic created an environment in which her allies were not just loyal, they were personally invested in her success. What's even more fascinating is that Cleopatra's charisma was not just a passive quality, it was something she actively cultivated. She understood that in a world dominated by powerful men, she needed to stand out not just as a ruler but as a person of profound intellectual depth. This was her unique way of asserting herself in a patriarchal world where women were often sidelined. She carved out a space for herself by engaging others through her mind, her strategic thinking, and her empathy. Thus, Cleopatra's true allure was a combination of intellectual brilliance and emotional intelligence, a rare and potent mix that made her a commanding presence in any room she entered. Her ability to captivate wasn't due to physical beauty alone but to the extraordinary way she engaged with those around her, making them feel understood, valued, and inspired. Cleopatra's relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony have often been framed as mere love affairs or instances of seduction. However, this reductionist view overlooks the complexity of Cleopatra's strategic mindset. These alliances were not driven by mere romantic attraction but were shrewd political maneuvers, carefully calculated to secure Egypt's sovereignty and her own position as ruler. To truly understand Cleopatra's brilliance, we need to shift the narrative and examine how she skillfully navigated the world of Roman power. When Cleopatra first met Julius Caesar in 48 BC, Egypt was in chaos. Her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, had seized control of the throne, and Cleopatra was forced into exile. The situation was dire. The Ptolemaic dynasty, which had ruled Egypt for centuries, was on the verge of collapse. Egypt needed Roman support if it was to survive, and Cleopatra, understanding the geopolitical realities, saw in Caesar a critical ally who could help her reclaim her throne. But what's truly remarkable is how Cleopatra approached this encounter. She wasn't just a young queen seeking Caesar's favor, she was a leader who saw an opportunity and seized it. Cleopatra knew that to gain Caesar's support, she had to make a lasting impression, not just through beauty but through intellect, charisma, and political savvy. This is where her psychological acumen came into play. Cleopatra's first move was to secure an audience with Caesar in person. The famous story of her being smuggled into Caesar's quarters in a rolled-up carpet is often romanticized, but it also highlights her daring and her understanding of how to make a memorable entrance. The very act of presenting herself to Caesar in such an unexpected manner was a psychological play. She immediately captured his attention and demonstrated both courage and resourcefulness. She wasn't just relying on her beauty to seduce him, she was playing the long game, appealing to Caesar's strategic mind and ambition. Once they met, Cleopatra used her linguistic skills and intellectual brilliance to establish a rapport with Caesar. Speaking in Latin, she bypassed interpreters and communicated with him on a personal and political level. She understood Caesar's goals, his desire for power and the consolidation of Roman influence in the East, and she positioned herself as a useful ally who could help him achieve these ambitions. In return, Caesar saw in Cleopatra not just a beautiful queen, but a sharp, capable ruler who could help him secure Egypt as a loyal ally in his quest for dominance. Over time, Cleopatra and Caesar formed a close alliance, both politically and personally. Their relationship was built on mutual respect and a shared understanding of each other's needs. Cleopatra demonstrated an acute awareness of Caesar's ambition, and she used this to her advantage. She didn't simply try to appeal to his ego, she made herself indispensable to his political objectives. She convinced him that a stable and loyal Egypt was crucial to his success in the Eastern Mediterranean, and she positioned herself as the key to that stability. Cleopatra's relationship with Mark Antony followed a similar pattern. When Antony came to Egypt in 41 BC, Cleopatra understood that this was not just an opportunity for personal gain, but also a strategic move to strengthen Egypt's position in the face of Roman power. Mark Antony was a powerful Roman general with his own ambitions. Cleopatra saw in him not just a potential lover but an ally who could help her secure the resources and military backing Egypt needed to maintain its independence. Again, Cleopatra's approach was calculated. She didn't rely on romantic attraction alone. She engaged Antony intellectually, appealing to his sense of purpose and ambition. Cleopatra understood that Antony, like Caesar, was motivated by a desire for power and prestige. She positioned herself as someone who could help him achieve these goals while also ensuring that Egypt remained strong and independent. The psychological dynamics of their relationship were rooted in mutual benefit, with both parties leveraging their resources and influence for their own ends. The brilliance of Cleopatra's approach lies in her ability to assess the personalities and motivations of the men she encountered. She wasn't simply a passive figure in these relationships, she was a master strategist who understood how to play to the psychological needs of others. By doing so, she ensured that both Caesar and Antony were invested in her success and, by extension, the survival of Egypt. Psychologically, Cleopatra's ability to form such influential relationships speaks to her deep understanding of human nature. She wasn't just navigating the political landscape, she was mastering the art of persuasion. She knew how to appeal to Caesar's and Antony's egos, how to position herself as indispensable to their ambitions, and how to secure their loyalty through shared goals. This is the essence of political survival: understanding the desires and motivations of those in power and using that knowledge to craft alliances that serve your interests. Cleopatra's political acumen was not just about surviving in a world dominated by men. It was about thriving and ensuring that Egypt maintained its sovereignty against the growing might of Rome. Her ability to navigate these complex relationships with both Caesar and Antony was a testament to her brilliance and her understanding of power dynamics. While Cleopatra's relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony were critical to her political survival, they were also fraught with complexity. They illustrated her brilliance in navigating Roman power, but they also highlighted the immense psychological burden she bore as Egypt's queen. The real challenge Cleopatra faced was not merely aligning herself with the powerful men of Rome but maintaining Egypt's independence in the face of Rome's growing dominance. Cleopatra's reign was set against a backdrop of Roman expansionism. As the Roman Republic morphed into the Roman Empire, its influence over Egypt increased, and Cleopatra was constantly faced with the pressure of balancing her own country's sovereignty with the need to appease Roman rulers. Egypt, although wealthy and powerful, was no match for the growing military power of Rome. Cleopatra knew that her nation's survival hinged on her ability to navigate this delicate balance. The psychological toll of this responsibility must have been enormous. Cleopatra wasn't just leading a kingdom, she was safeguarding its future. Her every decision, every move, was weighed not just for its immediate political impact, but for its long-term effects on the very survival of Egypt. The mental and emotional resilience required to carry such a weight is something few people can fully understand. Yet, Cleopatra seemed to handle these pressures with remarkable grace and intelligence. Her first act of self-preservation, in the context of Roman power, was to assert her autonomy in ways that were subtle but powerful. She didn't just rely on her relationships with Roman leaders, she used those relationships as a means to preserve Egypt's unique identity and position in the world. In doing so, she portrayed herself not as a puppet queen of Rome, but as a sovereign ruler who was fully capable of playing the political game. Cleopatra's psychological resilience was rooted in her deep understanding of human nature. She knew that Roman rulers like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony were motivated by their own ambitions. Caesar, for example, was driven by the desire to consolidate his power and secure Rome's dominance. Antony, on the other hand, was looking for a way to reassert Rome's power in the East and secure his own legacy. Cleopatra didn't just play to their egos, she understood the internal pressures they were facing and tailored her strategies accordingly. To preserve Egypt's independence, Cleopatra understood that she had to make herself indispensable to the Romans, while also ensuring that Egypt retained its autonomy. This was a delicate balancing act: too much submission to Rome, and Egypt would lose its sovereignty; too much defiance, and Egypt could risk Roman invasion or worse. Cleopatra's strategy was a series of calculated, psychological maneuvers that kept her in the driver's seat while still ensuring that her political alliances with Rome remained intact. Perhaps the most notable example of Cleopatra's strategic brilliance was her decision to align herself with Mark Antony after Caesar's death. When Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC, Cleopatra's position became even more precarious. The power vacuum left by Caesar's death was filled by a fierce competition between Antony, Octavian, later Augustus, and others vying for control of Rome. Cleopatra's political acumen was put to the test again. This time, she understood that Antony, while a powerful ally, was also a man in need of support to secure his position against Octavian. Cleopatra, ever the tactician, decided to deepen her alliance with Antony, not out of mere affection, but because she recognized that his success was tied to her own. By supporting Antony, Cleopatra ensured that she had a powerful Roman figure on her side, someone who would advocate for Egypt's interests and military security. But just as importantly, Cleopatra knew that if Antony was defeated by Octavian, Egypt would likely be next in line for Roman annexation. The decision to fully align with Antony was also a demonstration of Cleopatra's psychological understanding of loyalty and trust. She didn't just offer her support for political reasons, she worked to build a personal bond with Antony. Like Caesar, Antony was drawn to her intellect and charisma. Cleopatra made sure that he felt valued, important, and understood, not just as a Roman general, but as a man with his own desires and aspirations. This deep emotional connection allowed Cleopatra to secure Antony's loyalty, but it also ensured that her strategic influence remained strong, even as the political tides shifted in Rome. Psychologically, this was a high-stakes gamble. Cleopatra's decision to put all her chips on Antony was risky. She knew that Roman power, and especially the rising influence of Octavian, could easily tip the balance in favor of total Roman domination. But Cleopatra was playing the long game. She understood that in order to protect Egypt, she would need to take risks, build alliances, and sometimes sacrifice immediate gains for the long-term survival of her kingdom. The psychological burden on Cleopatra was immense. As Egypt's queen, she was not only a political figure but also a mother, a daughter, and a woman. She was constantly balancing personal relationships with political obligations, emotional ties with the cold realities of power. The pressure to keep her kingdom intact, to avoid falling into Roman control while still maintaining her relationships with Caesar and Antony, would have been a constant weight on her shoulders. Yet, through it all, Cleopatra managed to remain a powerful force in a world dominated by men. She did this not through brute force, but through a masterful understanding of human psychology, political strategy, and the art of diplomacy. As we reflect on Cleopatra's life, one crucial point emerges: her legacy extends far beyond the myths of beauty and seduction. Cleopatra's story is a testament to the power of intellect, communication, and strategic thinking. She was not simply a queen who captured the attention of powerful men. She was a master of psychology, a diplomat whose brilliance shaped the destiny of Egypt and influenced the broader Mediterranean world. Cleopatra's legacy can be seen in the way she redefined what it meant to be a woman in power. At a time when women were often sidelined in the political sphere, Cleopatra stood at the forefront of leadership, wielding her intelligence, language skills, and charisma to forge alliances, protect her kingdom, and navigate the complex world of Roman politics. In doing so, she proved that leadership and influence are not defined by physical appearance, but by the strength of one's mind and the ability to connect with others on a deep, personal level. Cleopatra's intellectual prowess was key to her survival and success. She wasn't just a figurehead or a passive observer of events, she was an active participant in shaping the course of history. Whether it was her political maneuvering with Julius Caesar or Mark Antony or her efforts to maintain Egypt's independence, Cleopatra demonstrated that the greatest tool in her arsenal was not her beauty but her ability to understand and manipulate the psychological dynamics of power. Her political acumen and diplomatic genius ensured that she was a figure to be reckoned with, both in Egypt and on the Roman stage. In the context of leadership, Cleopatra's story offers us valuable insights into the power of intellect, empathy, and communication. While we often celebrate historical figures for their military conquests or their ability to wield physical power, Cleopatra's true genius lay in her ability to use her mind, words, and emotions to shape the world around her. She understood that influence is not about brute strength but about building trust, crafting alliances, and appealing to the psychological needs of others. Her use of language as a diplomatic tool cannot be overstated. Cleopatra's fluency in multiple languages allowed her to communicate directly with foreign dignitaries, bypassing the need for interpreters and creating an immediate sense of rapport. In a world where communication was often a barrier to true understanding, Cleopatra's linguistic abilities bridged the gap, allowing her to form deeper, more authentic connections. She also demonstrated how intellectual and emotional intelligence can complement one another, creating an unspoken yet powerful force that others are drawn to. Perhaps the most profound aspect of Cleopatra's legacy is the way she challenged the conventional notions of power. While her contemporaries may have viewed beauty as the primary avenue for influence, Cleopatra understood that true power comes from the ability to inspire, persuade, and lead with wisdom. She wasn't content with being admired for her looks, she wanted to be respected for her mind. In this, she not only succeeded but also set a new standard for what it means to be a woman in power, someone who commands respect through intellect, not just appearance. The lessons we can draw from Cleopatra's life are universal. In our own lives, we are often taught to value external traits like appearance or status. But Cleopatra's story reminds us that true influence comes from within. It's about understanding people, recognizing their motivations, and finding ways to connect with them on a deeper level. It's about being strategically intelligent, emotionally perceptive, and intellectually curious. In a world that often celebrates superficiality, Cleopatra's story stands as a powerful reminder that the greatest strengths are those of the mind. Moreover, Cleopatra's legacy challenges the way we view female leadership. Historically, women have often been relegated to the background, their contributions minimized or ignored. Cleopatra, however, was an undeniable force in the political landscape of her time. She wielded her intellect, her linguistic talents, and her diplomatic skills with unparalleled mastery, showing the world that women could rule not only with grace but with unparalleled intelligence and strategy. Her life offers us an empowering message for today. In an age where external appearances are often given undue emphasis, Cleopatra's story teaches us that true power lies in our intellectual, emotional, and strategic capacities. Her ability to influence, persuade, and lead was based not on her physical allure but on her understanding of human nature, her intellectual depth, and her ability to communicate effectively. Her story offers an inspiring model for anyone seeking to make a lasting impact, whether in leadership, politics, or everyday life. As we look at Cleopatra's enduring legacy, we can see how her life and achievements continue to inspire and resonate with us. Her story challenges our preconceptions about power, influence, and leadership. It reminds us that true strength lies in intelligence, communication, and the ability to inspire others. And in an era where we are constantly faced with superficial judgments, Cleopatra's story encourages us to value intellect, strategy, and the power of the mind above all else. Cleopatra's life offers us several profound universal lessons about the nature of influence, leadership, and the power of intellect. As we reflect on her legacy, we can apply her strategies and insights to our own lives, regardless of the era in which we live. One of the most compelling takeaways from Cleopatra's story is the importance of intellectual strength. While much of history has focused on the physical aspects of power, strength, appearance, and the ability to dominate through force, Cleopatra's success as a leader came from her strategic thinking, her intellectual depth, and her diplomatic finesse. She proves that leadership does not require brute force or even a singular source of power, but the ability to read people, understand motivations, and leverage your knowledge in practical, impactful ways. Cleopatra's mastery of multiple languages demonstrates another powerful lesson. In today's globalized world, communication is key. The ability to speak the language of those you wish to influence, whether literally or figuratively, can open doors, build rapport, and create connections that would otherwise be impossible. Cleopatra's multilingualism allowed her to build stronger relationships with foreign leaders and her own people, proving that communication is not just about words but about fostering trust, understanding, and mutual respect. Her use of language also offers another psychological insight, that words carry immense power. Cleopatra didn't just speak to be heard, she spoke with purpose. Each conversation was an opportunity to form alliances, shift perceptions, or subtly sway decisions. Her intellectual ability to convey exactly what was needed, when it was needed, is a skill that anyone can cultivate. In any field, whether in politics, business, or personal relationships, the ability to communicate strategically and persuasively can be one of the greatest tools for success. Cleopatra's story also challenges us to rethink the role of charisma in leadership. Far from relying solely on her beauty, Cleopatra's charisma was driven by her intellect, her engaging presence, and her capacity to make others feel valued. True charisma is not about being the loudest or most charming person in the room, but about making others feel seen and understood. It's about connecting on a deeper level, beyond superficial appearances, and this connection is what inspires loyalty and fosters long-lasting influence. Moreover, Cleopatra's ability to build strategic alliances offers a timeless lesson on the value of collaboration and negotiation. She did not just enter relationships for personal gain, she sought out mutually beneficial partnerships that helped secure her reign and protect Egypt. Her alliances with powerful figures like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony were not the result of passive admiration but of active negotiations, where she leveraged both her diplomatic skills and her understanding of their ambitions to create bonds of trust and mutual interest. In today's world, this kind of strategic thinking is essential. Collaboration, even with those who may seem like rivals, can often result in better outcomes than competition. Her ability to balance power with empathy, strength with emotional intelligence, provides a model for modern leadership. Leadership today is not just about directing people, it's about understanding them, motivating them, and inspiring them to work toward a shared vision. Cleopatra's psychological mastery enabled her to navigate the intricate web of loyalty, manipulation, and ambition that defined her relationships with others. Her story highlights the importance of self-awareness and emotional intelligence in leadership positions, traits that are as valuable today as they were in ancient times. Finally, Cleopatra's ability to navigate her personal relationships while maintaining her political position speaks to the complexity of leadership. Leaders are often required to balance their professional and personal lives in ways that can seem impossible. Cleopatra's life is a reminder that navigating these complexities requires not only skill but resilience. She faced immense pressure from both within her own court and from external threats, and yet, she continued to lead with remarkable tenacity and grace. Her life teaches us that leadership isn't easy, it requires sacrifices, strategy, and an unyielding commitment to one's goals. Cleopatra's ability to sustain her nation's independence, while simultaneously engaging with the world's most powerful leaders, is a testament to her deep understanding of psychology. She grasped the delicate balance between diplomacy and power, understanding that the most effective leaders are those who know how to negotiate with, persuade, and inspire others. Her life was one of calculated risk, emotional intelligence, and intellectual power, demonstrating that the most enduring kind of leadership is grounded in the mind. So how can we apply the lessons of Cleopatra's life in our own world? How can we cultivate the same intellectual magnetism, communication skills, and strategic thinking that she employed to shape history? Here are a few actionable strategies inspired by her story. Cleopatra's story reminds us of the power of lifelong learning, an investment that shapes not only personal growth but also lasting influence. She mastered multiple languages, delved into various disciplines, and equipped herself with knowledge that made her a formidable leader. In our own lives, we can prioritize continuous learning, whether through formal education, self-study, or engaging with new perspectives. The more we know, the more we can contribute to discussions, solve problems, and offer value to others. Cleopatra exemplified what it means to master the art of communication. Cleopatra understood that effective communication is more than just speaking, it's about listening, empathizing, and connecting with others. She used language not only to inform but to persuade, inspire, and build relationships. To become more persuasive, we can start by refining our listening skills, seeking to understand others' perspectives, and tailoring our communication to address their needs and desires. To truly thrive, we need to understand and make the most of what sets us apart. Cleopatra didn't rely on one single skill or trait to achieve her goals. She combined her intellect, linguistic abilities, and charisma to create a powerful leadership presence. Similarly, we can identify and leverage our own unique strengths, whether they are problem-solving abilities, emotional intelligence, or creativity, and find ways to use them to our advantage in our personal and professional lives. Another key factor in achieving success is the ability to build strategic relationships, just as Cleopatra did with her carefully chosen alliances. She formed relationships based on shared goals and mutual benefit. To emulate this, we can focus on building meaningful relationships that go beyond surface-level interactions. Networking isn't just about what others can do for us, it's about creating collaborations that are beneficial for all parties involved. One essential quality for effective leadership and influence is emotional intelligence. Cleopatra was a master at understanding and responding to the emotions of those around her. Emotional intelligence, understanding one's own emotions, as well as the emotions of others, is crucial for leadership and influence. We can cultivate emotional intelligence by becoming more aware of our feelings, practicing empathy, and learning how to navigate difficult conversations with grace and tact. While Cleopatra's political genius and strategies were undeniably effective, it's essential to acknowledge the complexities and ethical considerations of her decisions. Her alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, while politically astute, were also deeply entwined with personal and political motivations that sometimes blurred the lines between diplomacy and manipulation. Cleopatra's decisions to leverage personal relationships for political gain are a reminder that power and influence can often come at a moral cost. Her story raises important questions about the ethics of political maneuvering. When is it acceptable to use personal relationships for political advantage? How much manipulation is too much, and where do we draw the line between strategic diplomacy and exploitation? Cleopatra's position as a Hellenistic monarch, speaking Egyptian and deeply rooted in both Greek and Egyptian cultures, also made her an anomaly. She was both a foreigner in Egypt and a native queen. Her identity was fluid, and she had to navigate these complex layers of cultural and political expectations. Her strategic decisions, while incredibly effective, were often driven by her unique position at the intersection of multiple worlds. Cleopatra VII's enduring legacy is not a testament to mere beauty, but a profound psychological study of intellect, linguistic genius, and strategic mastery in leadership. Her unparalleled ability to charm and influence the most powerful men of her era stemmed from her razor-sharp mind, her fluency in a multitude of languages, and her deep understanding of human psychology, rather than just physical allure. Her story powerfully demonstrates that true power resides in the strength of one's intellect and the strategic deployment of one's mental faculties, proving that brains can indeed conquer empires and secure one's place in history. What hidden intellectual strengths do you possess that could become your greatest assets? How can you cultivate your mind and communication skills to exert greater influence in your own empire? Share your thoughts below, like this video, and subscribe to Behind the Legend for more deep dives into the human psyche that shaped history. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Cleopatra's incredible life. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Behind the Legend. Stay tuned for more stories of historical figures whose legacies go beyond the surface, revealing the intellectual brilliance and psychological depth that shaped their worlds.